Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, coming in hot from Mexico, and I'm super pumped to have the one and only Rines on the show today, an initial contributor to Core DAO, an independent blockchain combining the decentralization and security of Bitcoin with the scalability and application platform of Ethereum. We love to see that. Rich focuses on the implementation of growth of Core DAO's revolutionary decentralized consensus mechanism aimed at unlocking the full potential and promise of blockchain technology by leveraging the complementary qualities of proof of stake alongside proof of work. He is also the founder and CEO of an outbound contact center software company called AutoReach and led money movements engineering at Coinbase, ever heard of him, for 3 years. Prior to those roles, he was also an engineer at LendingHome and Thoughtbot. Super pumped to have you on. Rines, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, Matt. Really excited to chat today.
Your background is absolute world-class. For the listeners at home who are, I guess not at home, but in your car, commuting to work, if you're still commuting, whatever the case may be, and you can't be on YouTube or any of the video platforms, this lad has one of the sweetest Zoom backgrounds I've ever seen. How many people compliment you on your background? I'd say it's got to be shooting at 50%, no?
So I save these mostly for podcasts. It's not an everyday thing, so we're bringing out the special stuff for our chat here today, Matt.
I love that. Let's jump right into it here. Before we get into Core DAO and all the incredible work that you and the team are doing to help scale primarily Bitcoin, but also give a bunch of really good utility to Bitcoin, let's jump into the start of the show yourself. Tell me a little bit about your past, growing up, any hobbies, sports, tech, you name it. Where'd you go to school? And a little bit about what you and your team did starting the outbound contact center and, of course, working at Coinbase. And then we'll get into all the fun stuff at Core DAO.
All right, lots to unpack there. Let me know if I get lost anywhere. We can always kind of get back on the direction. So I grew up outside of Boston. It was a great place to grow up. Really, really enjoyed it. Stayed there through college. I went to Boston College. Just don't get me started on BC sports. It's been just absolutely horrendous for like over a decade. It's a real soft spot for me, having grown up there and watched them be so good for so long. And then, by the time I was there, it went really downhill really fast. When I was a kid, one of my main hobbies was video gaming. Before video games were really popular, competitive video games, and that's where like a lot of kind of the strategy elements, everything kind of really started to develop at a young age. Used to read a lot and, focused a lot on, education, that sort of thing when I was a kid. When I got to college, most of that went out the window. I found entrepreneurship at a really young age. I was very fortunate when I got to BC to meet this amazing group of people and young alumni that were all doing amazing things out in Silicon Valley building companies. And I understood for the first time what, increasing marginal returns were. And that was just amazing. My mind was blown. I grew up, my mother was a lawyer, so I'd seen people that were entrepreneurial, but you were inherently bounded by your hours that you could work in a day. You didn't have anything where you could kind of make money where you sleep. Or when you sleep, I would say. And actually, when I was in college, I actually got the developer bug. I taught myself to code because no one would build my ideas for me. And as part of that, I built some iPhone apps myself. That's when you could be a college kid just writing iPhone apps, and the App Store wasn't like wildly proliferated. And it was actually a golf distance finder. It was this like Google Maps overlay hack. And it actually was a pretty cool little app, paid for beer money, paid for study abroad. It was awesome, but I kind of got this distribution through the internet kick at like 19 years old, and kind of the rest is history. But happy to double click on any of those elements.
That's so cool. I mean, obviously you could tell I'm a huge golf fan wearing the Titleist hat, and I don't know if you can see, but sticks are in the background as always. But you even brought them to Mexico. What gave you that idea? Because right now, and again, no free ads on the show, but heck, I use 18 Birdies all the time. That's my favorite app that I use. I don't even pay for the version. I mean, there's a couple, not even really ads, but just bullshit clicks they throw at you. But the app's hella clean. Most of my buddies have Rage Finders too. And it's right 95% of the time. And it's a great app. It also gives me, front of the green, back of the green. It lets you have a real caddy. It's incredible. What gave you that idea back then? Was that just the love for golf as a young kid, and then the love for tech, and you're like, hey, I'm going to combine the two? Like, how'd you come up with that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So I've been a big believer, and I got this advice really early on. It's like, solve a problem that you're passionate about. And at that point, I was playing a ton of golf. But I would get all these like random courses. You'd have to use the card. The card was always super inaccurate. You'd be looking for all the markers, such a pain, go back to like the 2000s, before we had all this amazing technology. So and it was also kind of mixed with my developer side, which is laziness, right? And like trying to figure out more clever ways to do things in kind of the most efficient period of time. So I found out at that period, you can just use Google Maps because Google Maps was close enough. And you could just kind of drag a pin from your current location to where you wanted to go. And that was actually a pretty good hack. And it was funny, like I never thought other people would use it. And I remember the biggest feature request at the time was to add meters. I was, of course, US based. So it was all in yards, which was always kind of a funny one. But that's where the idea came from. I never became like, the super popular iPhone developer, but it was a great learning lesson.
That's crazy. I remember the crazy app days. I was in middle school, grade 7 when the iPhone Touch came out. And, I saved up my money, bought one. A couple of my buddies had one, and the app store was just the wild, wild west. Like you could put anything on there. You could jailbreak your phone. It's not like today where Apple has these 6 trillion foot walls around everything. So it's cool that you got to at least experience that. It's I guess that's sort of a parallel to like crypto a couple of years ago, NFT, the first little NFT boom, where it was just a free for all, a good old frenzy, truly, truly wild, wild west.
Totally. There's a lot of parallels. And yeah, we'll see kind of the next wave of crypto kind of like opening things up. But yeah, there's a lot of parallels.
So Rich, let's jump into some of the crypto stuff here. You led money movements engineering at Coinbase for 3 years. Money movement engineering. That is quite the mouthful. Very nuanced, could mean a shitload of different things. What exactly does that mean? What exactly did you do at Coinbase? What did you learn? Give me some good stories from your time at Coinbase.
Learned way too many things. I've got plenty of stories, but those aren't for podcasts for the most part. Those are for beers at some time in Mexico. But money movements engineering is really all the on and off platform fund flows. So that's everything from sending crypto on or sending fiat off, or even buy sell trade on platform. And at Coinbase scale, those are huge volumes. It's around $1 trillion a year. So you've got a lot of volume there. And it's really hard to do that with like 4 nines reliability. Money is one of those things that people expect to just work. And when things don't work, you get really nervous and really angry. And you have a massive audience of people on Twitter, on various news sites that are very happy to start pitchforks after any small inconvenience, talk about you're insolvent, or all these crazy rumors start in like 2 seconds the moment you have a problem. And that was interesting to do at Coinbase scale, and to kind of have that seat to do that. I learned a ton, worked with so many amazing people. And one of the nice opportunities was I actually joined during the last bear market. And bear markets are when we build. And the big difference between today's bear market and the previous was we didn't really know if crypto was going to work at that point. There was a lot of ifs. And I 100% remember in March 2020, the COVID crash, when I still hold that if BitMEX didn't go down and their liquidation engine didn't stop, like crypto might have gone away. I don't know. Maybe that's my conspiracy theory. But it was a very interesting time because at Coinbase, there was a lot of people that were transitioning out that didn't know if crypto was really for them or if this was going to remain for the long term. And they needed people to step up and to take on leadership roles. And I threw my hat in the ring. I was always excited to get in the mud. I've been a 0-1 builder my entire life. That was right before the company really hit its final growth trajectory and went public and all that sort of thing. But it was a wild ride.
That's such a cool story. Tell me a couple things that the average Joe or Josephine wouldn't know in regards to money movement rails, money movement engineering. I mean, the average person probably isn't even aware of Swift and a lot of the other rails that literally move our magical internet dollars from one spot to another around the whole world. And then obviously we have crypto and all the different chains and whatnot. But specifically relating to your time at Coinbase, what are some of the crazy little things that you guys worked on in regards to the whole money movement engineering aspect of things?
So I'll start with a PSA that hopefully helps all exchanges out there get a little bit more love from their customers. Every blockchain is its own bespoke product that has its own guarantees. There's a lot of nuance and differences that go into it. It's very hard to process that reliably at scale, especially when it's an inherently adversarial environment, where if people can't attack you and do that successfully, they will. So you really have to, measure 3 times and cut once. So if your transaction gets delayed and that sort of thing, know that odds are it's probably working, and to maybe wait an extra few confirmations before going on to Twitter, whether it's with Coinbase or with any other exchange. Another piece that I just like bring about is the complexity of fund flows is pretty massive, if you will, when it comes to you've got all those heterogeneous abilities to get funds on platform in all these different countries, and then all these different ways to get it off, as well as all the different ways that you can utilize it on platform. And that's quite a lot to take in and to do well at 4.9's reliability, but it's also a lot of fun. And you get to all these interesting kind of optimizations of, well, do I allow the fund, or do I have to require the funds to land before I can get you to actually use that crypto? But it's a worse user experience because the price might have moved.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like nuances and difficulties that go into architecting that, but it's a really, really fun set of challenges and problems. And yeah, the interlap of engineering and risk is where I spend a lot of my time.
So interesting. It's true. You guys don't get enough credit for that. I mean, behind the scenes, it's got to be absolute nightmare fuel on your end. And I mean, on our end, it's like when the transaction goes through and it's quick, we're never being like, hey, Rich, great job. You and the team, kudos. We're not patting on your back. And then as soon as something goes wrong, you guys are the biggest fucking clowns on the like just absolute chirping, shredding you. Oh, it's crazy. But then again, that's the arena we're in. That's what we're doing. Let's jump right into Core DAO here. Tell me about how you got into it, and also tie in what exactly Core DAO is. I feel like it's almost a bit of a crime that Core DAO is front of mind, perhaps is the wrong word, but not a lot of crypto folks I personally find are very cognizant of Core DAO. And then looking at what you guys do and how important the mission is, we absolutely should be. We'll touch on that later. But just to start, how did you get into Core DAO and what exactly is Core DAO?
Yeah, so I got brought in to help really build the organization around Core DAO about 2 years ago now. It's crazy for me to say that, but it feels like just yesterday. At the time that I came in, it was this amazing group of engineers that had a lot of the pieces in place, but needed help on the go-to-market, the organization building, the operationalizing of a DAO, which no one has solved, including us. But it's something that we're working on every day to make better. And now the Core DAO is about 45 people all around the world who are all trying to see that mission and to get it to as many people as possible. And to go back to a little bit of the origin of Core, essentially in crypto, you've had these very divided camps for a very long time in between, the Bitcoin maxis and the Ethereum maxis, and Core was very similar at the beginning. There was a lot of differences of opinion, and one side's better than the other, all those sorts of kind of classic arguments. But through like a Socratic process, there was this, understanding that, well, actually there's 1 + 1 = 3 if we take the best of both worlds and bring them together. And in this case, that was the security decentralization of Bitcoin with the scalability and composability of Ethereum and then the EVM. And that's really how Core was born. You also made a comment around like our notoriety with a lot of the Web3 folks. And that's mainly because Core has a mainly Web2 audience right now. And Core is working hard to bring on board more of these Web3 folks. But when we look at it using our experience, from decades of operating, there's so many more Web2 folks out there. There's 6 billion mobile phone subscribers out there. And the Web3 audience today is so tiny by Web2 scale. And our mission is to help onboard as many of those people as possible to get all the benefits that Web3 can really bring. What I mentioned is we're actually crypto maxis, not core maxis. And the reason I say that is because we believe it's freedom preserving technology, instant global settlement, zero counterparty risk. Like that's really what crypto is all about. And it's our mission to bring that to, as many people around the world as we can while fulfilling, and remaining very close to Bitcoin. So we took a very different approach there. That's one of the reasons our community is so large, because we did as close to a fair launch as possible. The users were the first owners of the tokens. There was no early investors. And it was really kind of going back to the roots of crypto, as we like to say. There's been a lot of bad behavior and a lot of good behavior as well since, the 2017 cycle, but we wanted to really kind of go back to the roots.
I love when someone answers a question in the just most explicit and straight to the point way possible. And you nailed it. It's like you guys have 2 million followers on Twitter and tons of people in the community, but not that many Web3 folks. You just told me the reason why. I love that. And it makes so much sense. You're a sales guy, you're a marketer as well. Like you got to go to where the people are. You know what I mean? Like you got to go to where the biggest demographic and people with the most money are going to buy your stuff. That's economics 101. And that's exactly what you and the team are doing. I absolutely love that. I need to get a tattoo of that somewhere on my body. Maybe the first tat. Talk to me about the airdrop. You guys multiple successful airdrops. You airdrop stats, which is absolutely huge. Again, this is another tattoo-worthy story, just doing everything the absolute right way. Walk me through the whole process from literally inception to multiple successful airdrop launches.
So again, going with this community ownership piece that's so important is there's been this insiders versus outsiders mentality of many projects that have launched in the last few cycles, where you've got this adversarial relationship at launch where the investors and the users of the network are actually on opposite sides. And we find that dynamic super unhealthy to long-term, platform success. So when Core was thinking about its airdrop, it wanted to make sure that the users of the network were the only folks that had tokens when it launched, that they would then go stake and they would be that early network participants. And that was quite a different approach. And there was around 2 million folks from around the world that participated in it. There was this airdrop platform that helped facilitate it called Satoshi app. And the reason that that's so important is there's so many amazing builders in the space, but they have no one that are actually able to use their applications. And what these builders want to do for the most part is build real businesses. Well, if you can't build a real business, you're kind of doomed from the start, but you built some amazing technology. And what Core offers is a place for you to take your technology and get it to a real audience so you can build a sustainable business. And that's really important, not for us, just on like the platform aspect of being an L1 blockchain, but also for the people that want to launch on Core. Because if you don't have the ability to take something and make it successful, that's really challenging and really difficult versus just maybe flashy marketing launches and things like that you see, with some other chains.
Definitely the long road. Rich, we're going to take a quick break and give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XBT. And when we get back, we are going to take a deep dive into how you and the team sort of combined PoW and PoS, proof of work and proof of stake, the bread and butter of Bitcoin and the bread and butter of ETH. But until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends of cryptonews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet. You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promotion for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. The promo code is CryptoNews50. That is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with Rich. Let's keep buzzing on PoW and PoS here. If I was on the outside in and I was not a crypto lad and I heard you talking about how you guys are combining the best of both worlds, I would be like, this sounds too good to be true. This is almost a la Celsius, 8% yields, 247, 365, FTX, same nonsense, all the different nonsense we had. I don't want to say this is nonsense because it's not, but this is a topic that seems too good to be true, but you guys are actually doing this, focusing on interoperability, cross-chain functionality, and obviously massive, massive partnerships with companies like SushiSwap, which we will get into. But I need you to keep going on and take a deep, deep dive into how you're combining PoW and PoS, because this is something massive. And just like you said, there's tons of developers, tons of really talented people who can't get their shit in front of an audience. And by combining these two things, you're making this happen.
So the consensus mechanism is called Satoshi Plus, and it does have the two sides that you're referring to, the delegated proof of work and the delegated proof of stake. So on the delegated proof of stake side, it looks very similar to aspects like Binance Smart Chain and others where you've got a group of validators, you delegate your stake to, there's no minimum amount, but the idea is to get as many people as possible staking, which is quite different than some areas like Ethereum, where you need to have large minimum deposits, et cetera, to be able to actually participate because they've blended being a validator and then participating in the consensus. No right or wrong on that. They're just different models. And on the other side, we have delegated proof of work. And this is where kind of more of the novelty comes into play. And the delegated proof of work is actually this trustless relay mechanism where Bitcoin miners via the mining pools actually produce blocks add a little bit of data to that block that says which validator on Core they want to delegate to, and then also where they want their fees to go. And this process is entirely trustless. Relayers bring those blocks over to Core. And then the magic happens when you balance the delegated proof of work against the delegated proof of stake to elect the top end validators. And those are the folks that are actually participating in consensus. And then you have the delegated hash providers and the delegated stakers that are both receiving rewards. And it's actually exceeded our expectations so far, where already almost 1 out of every 2 Bitcoin blocks is currently being delegated to Core by the largest mining pools in the world. And that's because we have this very symbiotic relationship between Bitcoin and Core, where these Core rewards get recycled back into more Bitcoin OPEX, which leads to a stronger Bitcoin. And you get a really nice crypto economic cycle there where all sides are incented to play nicely together, and it helps keep both systems secure and decentralized.
Is that part of the $2 million Core ecosystem collaboration with MEXC and BitGet? Or is that something else?
So the 200 million ecosystem collaboration with BitGet and MEXC is actually totally separate. These are totally separate initiatives. One is really helping to grow the ecosystem and to get amazing builders, over to Core. And the other is really a key part of the consensus itself.
We also got to talk about the recent partnership with SushiSwap. Absolutely massive and totally on brand for you guys. What's going on there? Give me the lowdown, and then we'll get into some future forward-looking statements, forward-looking stuff with you and the team at Core DAO, and then we'll get into some of the non-Core DAO, but also Core DAO related stuff with Bitcoin at 35K and the good old classic question, are we back? But before that, SushiSwap, what happened there?
You see, I always get a smile on my face when people ask, are we back? And then also when you mentioned Bitcoin at 35K. So Core went to mainnet in January this year. Airdrop was in February. So we're still a relatively young chain overall, but the team's been able to forge a lot of amazing partnerships so far. So launched with Layer 0, SushiSwap came shortly after, and there's so many more that I'm very excited to announce, but I can't do yet. By the time this podcast comes out, actually another major one will have been announced, and that's BTCB with Avalanche, which is native wrapped Bitcoin on top of Core, which is super exciting. We're again very close to Bitcoin, and that's a very key part of our narrative as well as our consensus, of course. But you get to this amazing kind of triumvirate of partners, if you will, where by using Layer 0, we can bring over BTCB onto Core to have Bitcoin DeFi on top of Core, and it's great kind of watching that ecosystem continue to evolve. And we're spending a lot of time currently on different infrastructure providers to help bring over to Core so we can give a best-of-breed developer experience. So pretty much anybody you can think of is not too far away.
I love that. And what about the next couple months, next couple of years? You guys are always shipping new products, shipping new stuff. What do you have on the back burner that is going to pop off over the next couple of years and couple of months that you can tell me, of course?
So I'll give you a couple teasers of really exciting things. So one, getting closer and closer to Bitcoin. There's a lot of pieces that will come out there. Core is trying to add utility to, again, like the 600 billion of essentially trapped value in Bitcoin. Not all of that wants additional utility, but a lot of it does want to move just beyond store of gold. Obviously, those need to be like risk minimized solutions and that sort of thing. But we are looking into a variety of solutions for Bitcoin yield and other things of that nature. That's something to definitely watch as we get to kind of the end of this year, early next year. On the kind of more Ethereum side of the world, if you will, we're going to continue to evolve some of our staking mechanics to add additional flexibility to stakers. This is a very popular area of research for other chains, and Core plans to add in some of those pieces natively to allow additional utility to stakers. I won't use the exact phrase, but we've got a few cool things in the hopper on that side. But the team is constantly shipping on top of all the different like partner integrations and pieces that we're working on. It's really about how do we build a sustainable revenue base for Core as a platform, because that's how Core lasts for the long term. Many crypto projects kind of measure their progress in months. We measure our progress in years, because there's so much left for the chain to do to hit its mission.
That's sweet. Bitcoin as a whole, are we back, Rich? 35K, buzzing, give or take. We're going above, we're going below, but we pretty much hit that big level, big psychological level. What's your take? Is the ETF going to actually make shit boom? I'm seeing a bunch of people on Twitter. These are traditional ETF guys being like, I've pushed forward hundreds of ETFs. I've never seen it pump the way you guys think it's going to pump. And on the flip side, you have people saying, well, if BlackRock's going to have thousands and thousands of clients who are going to put millions and millions of dollars in. They need those, obviously not physical, but they need actual Bitcoin to, because it's a spot, it's on a futures, 1-to-1. What's going to happen? Is it going to rip to the moon? Is it going to have a slight impact? Is it going to have no impact? Is it already priced in? Price, well, we talk a little bit about price and just as the, Bitcoin as a whole, and then we'll get into some utility. But we'll start with price. Where do you think it's going? And will this ETF be as big as everyone thinks it is?
I think the ETF is massive for a variety of reasons. I think one, accessibility to Bitcoin for the millions or hundreds of millions of people out there that can't have self-custody, the largest funds in the world that aren't allowed to custody their own assets. So it's massive for accessibility. It's also huge for legitimacy. There's been many people that have never made a Coinbase account or have never done the pieces because they're too afraid of, not using something they're familiar with, their Fidelity or, one of these other kind of classic on-ramping solutions. PSA, if you are able to self-custody, still do so. That's still the best solution. But for quite a few people out there, I understand they'll never be comfortable or aren't allowed to do that. And if you're not, obviously this is the next best thing where it tracks spot so closely. When it comes to inflows, your guess is as good as mine. I think that's another one of those where you want to have a long time horizon. If you try to go into thing too hard, it could easily become one of those sell the news events. Yeah. But I think overall, it's just such a big source of legitimacy for the space. And it really means that crypto is here to stay. So in a long enough time horizon, Bitcoin's always been a good investment. And I think that's the right way to look at it.
Yeah, well said there. What about on the utility side? That's something that you personally are very passionate about. It's something that you and the team are very passionate about. We need more Bitcoin utility besides just to store value and a way to send value from person A to person B. Those are really, in my opinion, those are sort of the two big, not even so much narratives, because there's other narratives like, oh, it's a hedge against inflation, it's a hedge against fiat, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But actual present day use cases is ability to store monetary value by yourself, just like we talked about self-custody, and secondarily, an ability to send monetary value, not fiat, but Bitcoin from person A to person B. In my mind, those are the two big ones, really the only two that I'd say 99% of people use at the moment. What future forward-looking value do we have in regards to Bitcoin?
So I do just want to take one quick step back there and just give Bitcoin credit for what it offers as an alternative to traditional financial system. And that was where Bitcoin was originally born, out of the ashes of the GFC. But for billions of people around the world that live in places with unstable currencies, dynamic governments, being able to just have an alternative itself is a 10x, 100x better solution. Stable coins are very similar in that way as well, where these are huge for just product market fit in crypto generally. And as much as we're ready to move past those as like an industry, we can't forget this base that we're all, building on top of. It's really like a standing on the shoulders of giants type thing. I think those use cases will continue to grow, especially with such uncertain economic times that we're currently in, and by anyone's guess are likely going to stay in for a bit. What's been fascinating to watch is since the beginning of this year is Bitcoin coming back into vogue. We saw ordinals, we saw BRC20s, neither of which has super stuck, but has shown, wow, you can get transaction fees that are really material here, which help with the whole kind of play to the miners, everything on that side. But also, hey, there's actually a lot of interest here from people who hold Bitcoin, not just outsiders or people that are on different chains, to get more utility out of their Bitcoin. And a lot of these solutions are really like square peg in a round hole right now.
Yeah.
And what the community is looking for on some level is a better alternative without sacrificing the special properties of Bitcoin, right? It still has to be secure. It still has to be decentralized. And my bet is that DeFi and staking are actually going to be two of the biggest unlocks for Bitcoin holders, because depending on the products that get offered there, they can still be pretty secure, maybe not as secure as Bitcoin, but with minimized risk. And I think a lot of folks would like to have additional yield on top of their Bitcoin where it's not a yield producing asset. Like one of the biggest things in the Ethereum space is as soon as Ethereum became a productive monetary asset, you started to see people being able to build other more complex pieces on top of it, because now you have a sustainable yield. And I think Bitcoin is overdue for something like that. It'll happen, let's call it the next 6-12 months. There'll be some really amazing attempts. Core will, of course, have their hat in the ring there.
Yeah, it's so cool. Rich, this has been an absolute treat. We've covered so much, and all of my points have been more than covered, and I'm super pumped to have you on. I know we barely scratched the surface here. We do have a segment on the show called The Hot Take Factory, where you and I jump in the Hot Take Factory, put our shit kicking boots on, knee high, good old Texas knee-high boots, and we get down and dirty. You got to give me a couple Rich Rines hot takes before we let you go today. Doesn't have to be crypto related. Can be health, wealth, happiness. We can get a little spicy. Politics, aliens, AI, you name it. But give me a couple hot takes before we let you go.
Hot takes. My VC friends won't be as happy about this, but I think you're seeing a lot of like the previous crypto hype go into AI now, and I think it's one of those like mismatched expectation curves again.
Yeah.
And I actually do think that this AI crypto combination is going to be really powerful for like autonomous agents that are using crypto rails. I am very bullish about that. I think we're like 10 years away from like a lot of these mainstream use cases,
Yeah.
but I think it's really cool stuff that will happen there. I'm also an optimist. So like as other people are saying, like, things are dead or whatever, I'm usually looking as like, hey, in a long enough time horizon, you get there. So I think that would be one of my hot takes. I don't know how hot of a take that is. I'll give you maybe a slightly spicier take. Most crypto apps are really bad today, and they're designed for Web3 audiences. And we're so crypto native that we're willing to use like really horrible experiences because we just have this like unmet need that we have to go solve. And the industry changes their opinion on that, we're never going to go mainstream. And that's really hard for people that are so in this space to kind of get pulled up enough to, their head out of the weeds to kind of see that. But I think the next wave of applications that we see that are still self-custodial are going to look a lot more like Coinbase because, and this is I've used on a lot of times, Coinbase's killer feature originally was forget password for your Bitcoin wallet, like simply put. And then obviously they added a lot of pieces on top of it, but that was enough of a delta for them to help form a wedge. And then they built so many amazing things on top of it. But I think that's where we'll see a lot of things start to materialize in the next few years. Either way, couple takes for you.
No, I agree with both your takes there. The friction in Web3 is horrendous. Just I always ask, like, imagine telling your parents or grandparents to set up a MetaMask account. Like, come on, it's not happening. There's no chance. Like, and then, or, playing some DeFi game or Web3 game and bridging one chain to another. Like, no, it ain't happening. It's bananas. And that was point number 2. Point number 1, you said you're a lazy developer, which I love. I can tell you're one of those work smart. You definitely work your ass off too, obviously, but you're a work smart over work hard kind of guy. Once autonomous agents are up and running and buzzing all over the place, like, productivity is going to be through the roof. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. People who can't code like myself are going to be 10x engineers. People who can code like yourself are going to be 10,000x engineers. I think it's going to be a pretty fun time 5 to 10 years down the road. Not when AGI comes around, because I think that's later on, but when autonomous agents are actually here to help us with small little things, booking flights, fully outsourcing leads, sales, marketing, you name it. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
I'll give you one like slight hot take on top of that. I think that's also one of the reasons I'm so excited about that is if we don't solve that, I don't know how the economy fixes itself, because you need like a massive gain in productivity to get out of all problems. So it's like such an interesting problem that is really hard, but if you solve it, it like solves a lot of humanity's problems. So I don't know. I think on like global scale problems is fun to do. So yeah.
Yeah, you're one last thing and then we'll wrap up here, just because obviously you and I are both golfers as well. I don't know why there isn't a really legit golf swing app where it's like, again, you build these LLMs. Why can't you just build a visual LLM similar to your, not obviously Midjourney or DALL-E or anything of the like, but you film yourself taking a swing in 10 different sort of ways of filming it. And then the AI just spits out what exactly you're doing wrong and gives you the proper drills to fix it. Like, golf coaches are hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. There are a couple apps that have that idea. I've downloaded all of them. They're absolute dog shit, every single one. My apologies if we have any listeners, any founders who've created these apps and are listening to the show. I appreciate what you're doing, but your apps are absolutely horrendous, like just atrociously bad. You're a guy who's built apps before. How hard is this? How hard would this be to build?
Oh man, that's a really loaded question. It's really hard to build a really seamless app. And a lot of this technology, at least like, LLM stuff right now, is like still pretty raw. But I think, and again, I have not experienced one of these apps. My guess is it's kind of a bolt-on, right? It's like an additional feature that they're adding. It's not the core of the app.
Yes.
And for someone to really do it right, they might have to make it the core focus and then kind of expand outwards, which is usually kind of your classic land and expand approach to things. But if you're passionate about it, man, maybe that's your call to entrepreneurship.
I just feel like I have so many friends, myself included. You know, I'd love a little swing tip here and there. I don't want to pay a couple $100 an hour. I have the ability to set up a phone in 10 different ways to take a nice little video of my swing. And, you know, if it can give me a couple drills or tell me my hands are too high or I'm not throwing it out left to the right or I'm not hinging a proper way or my grip sucks, whatever, that'd be a treat and a half. I'd pay $20 a month for that. I feel like there's thousands of people who would. Maybe I'll get on this, Rich. You never know. But either way, pumped to have you on. This was an absolute treat. Truly appreciate it. Before you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you and Core DAO online and on socials?
Awesome. Yeah, it was a great chat. Really enjoyed it. You can join our Discord. We've got like a link tree, or you can kind of find all the different social pieces. But twitter.com/CoreDAO_org is kind of the main point. And then I'm at Rich Rines on Twitter. But yeah, really excited to chat. If you're building something in Web3, please do reach out to myself or anyone on the team. We'd love to talk. It's, you know, super exciting time in crypto. The bear markets are when we build amazing things. So definitely, you know, come reach out.
Bingo. Rich, thanks again, man. Truly appreciate it. Can't wait for round 2.
Awesome. Thanks.
Folks, what an episode with Rich Rines, an initial contributor to Core DAO and also founder and CEO of AutoReach. He was dropping knowledge bombs left, right, and center. We'd love to see that. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys so much. Thank you for everything. Eustace, my amazing sound editor, you are the GOAT. Thank you. Appreciate you. And to the listeners, keep on growing those bags. Keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.